The Zoom F6 is a powerful audio recorder, but it's not just that, it's also an audio interface that you can use together with your computer to get all of those 6 inputs into a multi-track recording into your audio editing program. All that whilst also being able to record on the device at the same time. Now, if that's interesting to you, this video is for you because here I'm going to cover these different settings, the stereo mode, the multi-track mode, as well as the multi-track with recording on the device. And I'm also going to cover the SD card reader capabilities built into the Zoom F6, which help you not to have to remove the SD card from the device to get your files to your computer. And that's actually where I want to start today's video, talking about the SD card and also the ability to use this device as a SD card reader. Because as you probably know, on the F6, the SD card is actually placed behind the battery that you can attach at the back here, which is a NPF style battery. This, of course, is only really a problem if you use that type of battery. If you're only using the inbuilt battery pack with the AA batteries or USB-C power from the port right there, then you won't necessarily have that problem. But for those that are using NPF style batteries, it is a bit of an annoyance that you actually have the battery door right here behind all of that battery pack. Now that is a major annoyance if you need to offload footage from the SD card that way. However, I personally most often connect the Zoom F6 with a USB-C cord. When it is also turned on, go to the menu all the way to the system preference settings here. And there I can go to USB, and there the topmost setting is SD card reader. And as I hit enter there, now I can go over to the computer, and there you see that now I already have that interface ready to go. So we have the F6 SD card, and there you can see we have all those folders with the trash, the done F6 settings, because that's really cool that you can actually also save those settings on the device. And of course, folders for specific projects that I am creating. So that is actually already the SD card reader capability. It's really powerful that you can actually just do this instead of having to remove the SD card and use some other SD card reader. I really like to use it this way, and I find it super useful, especially when I'm here in my studio recording on the Zoom F6 in 32-bit float and having the USB power from my computer anyways, and then just simply activating the SD card reader mode to also offload all the audio files that I recorded on this device. Now to disconnect and eject, again, you can of course use the Finder first and eject the file. And now on the device, we can hit the menu button to go out of the SD card reader mode. So that's the SD card reader mode, really easy to offload your footage. But now let's talk about the audio interface modes that are available on the Zoom F6. And for that, we actually have a microphone connected here on the side in channel 2. We're going to activate channel 2 audio right here. And now, as you can see, we have a signal. And right now, this is in 32-bit floating point mode. Now, if I go into the settings and I go to system, because that's where we want to go, USB, SD card reader is the one we just went with. Now we go with audio interface. And there we're going to choose the stereo mix. I want to briefly mention the other modes. Stereo mix is one mode where you have 2 channels, left and right, that is going from the device to your computer. And then you also can send audio in stereo mode to the device, which will end up being output to the headphone port. Then we have stereo mix with iPad. That's something I'm going to cover in a separate video, talking about the USB-C mode or USB-C capable mode, connecting this to your iPad Pro, for example. And then we also have multi-track mode, where you get all 6 of the inputs available on your computer, and you also can send 4 signals from your computer to the Zoom F6 to be either recorded to one of the ports or output to the headphone port. Now, that is also something where I'm going to talk about a program called Loopback from Amoeba, which will be able to actually route multiple audio streams together, applications, as well as sound from Zoom and stuff like that. So we're going to look into this from an audio perspective in terms of Audition and recording something, but also from the use as an audio interface, for example, for live streaming, podcasting, and similar things. And of course, with that, we're also going to look into the audio interface mode with recording capabilities, which is always multi-track enabled. And all of that, what I just talked about, is only able to be done in 24-bit mode. So let's start with the stereo mix. As I open this up, the device is actually changing into that mode. And now if I hold this up to my mouth and I speak into this microphone, you can see we have the 24-bit mode, and that is signified by the fact that now the lines or the gain level has kind of like the broken up lines, and before it was a nice gradient, now it is actually a little bit of a striped green line. So that's how it's going there. And of course now with the 24-bit mode, we also can check for the trim. And the trim is a setting that is actually also changing the gain on things. So right now, if you want to level microphones against each other, you would do that with the trim. And right now we have a trim of plus 22 on channel 2. However, the signal is a little silent, so I'm going to turn this up a bit. Now we are at plus 35. Let's go, and now we are too loud. Let's go back a little bit here. And now, yep, that would be something that I would be able to work with. So that's how you set the trim. This is the individual gain for this microphone, because as you go back, now as you can see here, this here is actually the fader, which changes how much of that goes into the stereo mix. And the stereo mix is the one that we are also going to get on the computer. So as I set this to plus minus 0, you will see that we have a pretty nice signal going to the stereo mix. Now, this is something that I also cover in a separate video on my channel about the Zoom F6, and you can check that out by the link in the description with the playlist about the Zoom F6. The settings of these knobs are different in 32-bit mode and in 24-bit mode, because in 24-bit mode you have a trim and the fader, and in 32-bit mode you actually have two different modes or two different ways these record stuff. But as we have this activated and this microphone is connected and set up everything, we can go over to the computer, and here we can go to the system preferences and go into the sound settings right there. And as we will scroll down, as this is connected via USB-C, we now have the H&F series stereo track USB audio. So this would now be the output if I select that, and everything that I play back on this here would then be output to the headphone port of the Zoom F6. And then with the input, we can do the same thing, H&F series stereo track USB audio. That then would be the mix down that you can see here as the left-right signal on the Zoom F6. So those are the audio interfaces that you can choose here. And with that, you could actually already start using this for a Zoom call, for example, by activating these as your input and output in Zoom or Skype or any of those applications. But let's talk about how you would then record stuff. And for that, I have Adobe Audition open right now, going into the preferences and there into the audio hardware settings. And here I can then also go into the drop down, and there we have the H&F series audio interface. So let's select that, hit OK. And now I have these two tracks here. The top one is a mono track and the lower one is a stereo track. And as you can see here, I can go in and select the mono. And here I could select either the left or the right audio track. And let's select one of those. And here we have the stereo track, and I can select the stereo track as well. And now I can actually arm these for recording. And as you can see, we already have a signal from this microphone coming into the computer. And now I can also hit record right here, and you can see the recording on the computer screen as well. This is the audio that is coming from this microphone through the Zoom F6 all the way to the computer. This, however, is in stereo mixdown mode. So what you will get is all of the tracks combined to a mixdown based on the fader settings that you have set on the device. And that's pretty much all you can do with this mode. However, there are a few settings that you might also want to check out. Of course, you can change all kinds of input settings, like, for example, linking things together, as well as activating certain functionalities here. For example, you can go in and activate a limiter on those tracks and use those inputs as you would with other settings. You can even go in and also use the auto mix feature, which I will also have a specific video about. Now, something specifically interesting here is that you also have a loopback functionality. And loopback basically means that if you are sending audio from your computer to the Zoom F6 as the output interface, and with that also to your headphones, if you plug those in on the side port right here, then that audio, if the loopback is off, will just be output there. However, if you turn the loopback on, then this audio coming from the computer will also be mixed into the stereo mix and with that sent back to your computer. In the manual for the Zoom F6, this is basically mentioned as, for example, the use of overdubbing something. So for example, you have a music track and you want to speak over that music with your microphone, then you can use that loopback function. However, what you will not have then is a separate track for both of those, and they will actually be combined in those stereo tracks. So that's something to keep in mind with the loopback function. The things are not going to be separated anymore. It's all going to be mushed together. So this might not be as useful as it seems in the first moment, at least in my opinion, but maybe it is useful for you. Now, exiting this stereo mixdown mode, and we will land back on the main interface. Let's check out the multi-track mode. So we go to the menu, System, USB, Audio Interface, and now we can go into the multi-track mode. And as you can see, once again, we are in the 24-bit mode based on the lines, as you can see here on the screen. And in the menu here, we don't have much more settings. Actually, we have one setting less with the loopback mode now disabled in multi-track mode. However, if we now go back on the computer and we go into the sound system preferences, there you will actually find again the H&F series audio interface, but this time it's the multi-track USB audio in the input section, and the same thing for the output section. Now, the difference between those two modes is that now if I open up Audition and I go into the audio preferences and audio hardware there, and now I select the H&F series multi-track USB audio interface as the default input, then now with the input selection here on the track, I actually have all of the 6 inputs available to me to choose from for these tracks. And I can actually record all of the 6 at the same time onto different tracks here in my audio editing program. So let's select channel 2 because that's the one where we have the microphone connected. And then with the stereo track, now you actually also have 3 available. In this case, it's basically linking channel 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 together as stereo tracks for you already. So now if I select the H&F series and in 1, this is channel 1 and 2, and arming these 2 for recording, you can see we have channel 2 available on our track number 1, the mono track, and then on stereo track we have left and right, channel number 1 and 2. And of course, we don't have any signal on channel number 1 since there's no microphone connected right there. And that's why we only have a signal on our right channel for this use case. Now, this is how it looks for the inputs. You can select every single one and also select pairs in the stereo mapping. For the output, it's a bit of a different story when we go back into the preferences here in Audition Audio Hardware, and then we select the output also to be the H&F series. And then we go to the audio channel mapping. You can actually see that for the output, you have 4 channels available. Now, these 4 channels in this mode, the simple multi-track mode, are also going to simply be output to the line out and headphone port. And there are no specific settings as to what you can do with those on the device. This, however, is a very different story when you change into the audio recording mode with multi-track enabled. So that's also what we are going to cover next. Now, I think this multi-track mode is nice to have. However, it's nothing compared to the other multi-track mode with audio recording capabilities, because there you can still record on the device. You can also record all of those 4 outputs that you can send to the device. And with that, you have much more abilities there. So let's change into that mode by going into the menu and exiting this audio recording mode. And now as this has exited, we are now back in 32-bit floating point mode. However, if we go into the system preferences under USB and then try to activate the audio recording mode with audio interface, it reminds us that this is only able to be done in 24-bit mode. So for that, we have to go into the rec settings. There, go to mode and change this to linear 24-bit. And then once we have this, we can go back to the system, USB, and audio interface with recording, and we can turn this on. The cool thing here is that this actually is a setting that will stay turned on as you also turn this device off and on again. Again, you can only do this in 24-bit mode. However, combining this with the ability to also store settings on the device as you have different configurations, I think it's really powerful because you can, for example, have one of those settings set up for your desk mode as an audio interface with different mappings and setups. And then you can also have a separate setting for example, movie making or YouTube video recording or podcast recording. And there, for example, you can use auto mix, limiters in 24-bit mode, no limiters in 32-bit mode, and such things. So this is how you turn on the audio interface mode with recording. And as this is set up, we can go back into the menu. And as you can see, the menu looks just like normal. And you can actually change all kinds of settings as you would normally do. However, now as we go over to the computer, and there we check for the audio interfaces, now we have the F-series audio interface with recording as an output and as an input that is also available. Now, again, this is not really useful as a general audio interface for your computer, simply because it's a multi-track audio interface and you would want to choose those things individually. So let's close this off, open up Audition again, go into the audio preferences there, audio hardware, and here we can now select the F-series audio interface with recording as our default input. Hit OK, and here we can now go in and see the mono tracks, and in this mode specifically you actually have all of the 6 channels available that you have on the Zoom F6, but additionally you also have channel 7 and 8, and those two are the stereo mixdown that you can see on the device that you can also fade stuff in and out of, so that's actually really cool and useful. And now if we just select, for example, channel 2 here, then we'll get that signal, and let's turn on monitoring and recording. And on the stereo track, we still have channels 1, 3, 5, again paired as 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. And then number 7 is the 7 and 8 combination, which will give you the complete mix down as a stereo mix. So now, as we have this ready and going, we can hit record, and then you will see the signal that I am currently speaking into this microphone. Now that's all really nice and useful, especially if you want to use those multiple inputs, for example, to mic up something like a drum set. You can still record on this device here by hitting the record button, as you can see right now, and you also have the signal on your computer. I actually think that this device with this mode is actually really powerful for remote podcasting or any type of podcasting where you want to integrate sounds from your computer, for example, a sound pad as well. And for that, I think there's a great software called Loopback from Amoeba, and that is a great companion to all of this. With this application, as you can see here on the screen, you can actually route audio from different applications to other applications. And I will probably make a deep dive on this application and its capabilities in a future video. But for now, let's just say you can send audio from different applications to, for example, different channels on the Zoom F6. And I'm just going to demo that with a demo setup right here. As you can see, we have 2 audio interfaces here on the screen. We have one demo input and one demo output. Now, what we want to do, for example, in a Skype conversation, we want to have the audio from this microphone going to Skype as the input. And then we also want the audio coming from Skype, and that audio should be sent to this device for number 1, monitoring through the headphone port, and number 2, we also want to record the audio coming from Skype on this device so that we can record the full podcast with my audio coming from this microphone and the guest's audio coming through Skype onto this device. Now, to do all of that, we have the demo input, and that's the audio coming from this device, so coming from this microphone right here. And in Loopback, we actually can go in and hit the plus icon right there and select the F-series audio interface as a input. And now we have those 2 channels up here, channel number 1 and 2 by default, channel mapped to channel number 1 and 2 on the output channels. And what I would want to do here is actually also link channel 1 and 2 reversed, because this way we basically create a mono signal for this stereo track. Now, this setting basically means that even if I plug something into port number 1, this also would be sent into the same channel setup on 1 and 2. And I think that that's really powerful because it means that you can have multiple people talking here or have multiple audio sources. For example, a sound pad that you also plug in here, or a microphone, or a different kind of instrument that you want to connect here. Now we have that basically mapped in a way that now both of the channels in channel 1 and 2 on the output side are going to receive all of that signaling. Now, if you want to include more than that, I would always just link those up as well. So in this case, channel 3, for example, also in there. And now we would be able to just have 3 XLR-connected devices right here on the Zoom F6, all linked to this input device. And now with this set up, we actually can open up an application like Skype, go into the preferences and then audio and video settings. And this is usually the same whether it's Teams, Skype, or anything like that. And there we can select our camera. Right now you can see the top-down camera there. And as the microphone, we can select the demo input. And as I speak into this microphone, you can see there is a signal. And if I now would, for example, remove the links right here for channel number 2, and there you can see now we don't have any signal coming in there. And as I link those up again to channel number 1 and 2, you can see we again have a microphone signal coming into the Skype application. Now, something I want to point out here is that you also have channel 7 and 8. However, if you link those up, you would actually get a loopback, because the audio that we are going to send to the Zoom F6 would then also be sent back, because that's the stereo mix on channel 7 and 8. And the stereo mix will actually also get all of the audio that you are sending to the device. So that would not necessarily be helpful in this specific setup. Now, to also be able to get the demo output working, so we want to send the audio coming from Skype to the Zoom F6, we have to do a little bit of a different set. Here we can go to the speakers and set the demo output. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the test audio so that we have a signal there. And as you can see on the loopback, we now have the demo output here as the pass-through audio. And with the pass-through audio, now we want to send this, and the best way in Loopback to do that is simply going in and adding a monitor. And here we are going to add the F-series audio interface. And now, as you can see, the audio that we are sending through here is mapped to USB channel 1 and 2. And now we can go back on the F6's interface, and here we can go to the menu, go into the input. There we can go to PFL. And here, for example, let's map 5 and 6 as the stereo coming from the computer. So we can go to input number 5, and there we can go in and source, and there we will go USB 1. And as we go back, now you can already see a signal that is coming out here. And as we go in and change to channel number 6, we're also going there and we choose USB number 2. And we have a select signal there as well. Now, something that I would also want to do here is to link those together and go into the link settings. We want to go into the input settings, and here let's map 5 and 6 as a stereo signal. And the trim link, we also want to do those two together so that they are also linked together as we would change the trim. And now as I enable this 5th channel right here, you can see that we immediately have both of these activated. So 5 and 6 are immediately activated. And let's set this to just 0, 0. And now you can see we have a signal right there. And as I speak into this microphone, we still have the test audio coming from the computer. Now, if we also wanted to level this in, we can go back into the input settings. And now the trim, we already linked that together so that the trim setting is the same for the 5 and 6 channel. So let's go to the trim setting right there and increase the trim. And now we have that set up, and this is how you would level the USB output coming from your computer so that it is a nice and clear signal and ideally not clipping. And of course, you can also enable the limiter on this channel if you choose to want to do that, because we are in 24-bit mode. And now, as you can see, we are a bit loud because for whatever reason, the left signal on the channel 5 is actually louder than the one on the other one. So let's go in here and change this a little lower here. Let's say minus 15 decibels. And this is a bit better. And with that, we might want to just undo a little bit of the fade right there. So now we have set up multi-track mode. We have sent the audio from Skype to the audio interface. Now, if you connect a headphone set right there, you would be able to hear your own audio coming from this microphone that is connected to the Zoom F6, and you also hear the sounds coming from the computer into this device. You can level your mix by using the knobs right here. However, those only change the gain that is going into the left-right mix down. So that's the only purpose of these knobs as they are set up right now. If you want to add any additional gain to any of those individual channels, then you would have to change to the trim setting and go into each and every single input and change those trim settings there. But the amazing thing is that now you can hit record right here. And as we are recording right now, we are recording the audio coming from the computer and the audio coming from your own microphone right here. And with that, you would have a high quality audio recording of something like a Skype conversation. Now, of course, this is still an audio that is coming through something like Skype. However, it is better to have something like this recording it, because that way you have a backup in case anything goes wrong on your computer. But of course, there are also interesting ways to link things together with Loopback or Audio Hijack on your computer to be able to record audio into Audition, also coming from Skype, and an additional microphone that you have connected to your computer. But that's also a topic for another day. Today, this all was about the Zoom F6 and its audio interface capabilities. And that's pretty much covered for now. Now, if you have any questions about this subject, you can leave those in the comment section down below. I'm gonna try to answer you there or make a video specifically about that. If this video was helpful for you in any kind of way, I would appreciate a thumbs up. That helps out a lot. And with all that said, I hope you understand the Zoom F6 better, make great recordings, have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.